Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of The Rundown, your home for CSAA football coverage, presented by our great friends at Michigan ADAS. Brandon Worth here alongside my partner, JT Scarpelli. And we have another special guest for you today. It's J-Lo. No, not Jennifer Lopez. It's Johnathan Losinski. Johnathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, let's just get right to it.
Yeah.
So obviously the big two, right? We'll go with Reed City and Big Rapids first. We'll start with Reed City. I think the most fun thing here, we're looking at two different models. We're looking at the STY model, or the snooze model, as some call it, and then you have the GP model, which has another name that JT likes to say. I won't say it on here.
The poop model.
There you go. So we'll start with the STY model, the snooze model. This is one that's very up to date. And for Reed City fans, they're looking at that first-round matchup saying, oh, my goodness, we're going to see that again in round one. How fun of a football game that would be against the Kingsley Stags. And Mason County and Manistee were lined up in round one. Those are two teams that are going to play each other in week 9. So that's going to be a really fun season for both those teams. And then they might even play each other again back-to-back weeks. Imagine that. And then Nogany, of course, in the 1 seed. The number 1 team here, obviously, that we're going to be watching that has the most influential impact on the way that these line up, JT, especially in our discussions here, is Standish Sterling, a team that is 3-3 right now, but have an absolute gauntlet ahead of them. They are playing Ovid LC, who is undefeated, and they're also playing, checking my notes here, Ogama Heights this week, who is also undefeated, and they don't have a Week 8 game to benefit in case there is 2 losses there. So they are really going to have to step up to the plate. If they do, they're proving themselves as a football team that can make the postseason. If not, the door is going to be wide open for another team to swoop in.
Yeah, and I mean, we can see you did a really good job, right, of going old school with me a week or so ago, laying out all the teams by division, and you start to see just how sparse that gets the farther north you go. So if you knock one of these northern teams out, it can blow up the whole bracket, start kicking teams down south. So if Standish can't figure it out, I mean, that Week 8 is big.
It is.
Not having a game, that's big time.
Which there's a couple teams as well that are in the same boat. So maybe now they
can add.
Forming some alliance maybe for later in the year. Oh, yeah, we're going to need some points. You want to play here? We'll play there. I don't know what's going on there, but maybe we'll see a potential add there as well. But obviously that model is very current. Looking at the GP model as well, that one is a little bit more future-esque. And the thing that really stands out is we're going to play Newaygo potentially in a district final game. Boy, I think Reed City would love to see that game round 2, how fun it was offensively. But I think the biggest key there, too, is obviously in that model, it's looking at projections down the season. There's a team missing that we just mentioned named Standish Sterling, right? Who's going to take their spot? And so in this case, if there's going to be a team that gets bumped down, right, it's going to be Kingsley. They're going to get, or excuse me, I should say bumped up. Newaygo's going to get bumped down in terms of going into this district and not necessarily into a Grand Rapids center district. So that would be very interesting to see. And they also have, Johnathan, you can take this personal. They have Newaygo winning this game against you guys in week 7. That is what gets them to the 1 seed over top of Reed City, because Reed City in that model is a 3 seed. Not hosting a single game.
That's wild. Wild that Mason County Central and Newaygo would be,
over
no
top.
offense to them, but would be over Reed City with wins against Kingsley and Maple City, and then even being on the same field as Notre Dame. It's just kind of wild.
It's just crazy how that works out. But 2 teams I think that you should be on the lookout for Standish if they were to fall out. Pinconning, they've been in and out so far this year. They have a favorable Jack Pine schedule the rest of the way. They're going to be playing Beaverton and Saginaw Valley Lutheran, also another team that's looking to get in. So they can win that one. That might be a win and get in type of situation, as well as Montague. I hate to bring up the Wildcats again for Reed City fans. I know that's a team that we don't like to see as much because of obviously all the back and forth on the matchup. Obviously, it's about 50-50 since 2018 when we've played them. It's been a win, a loss each way. They're a tough football team. They're 2-4 right now, but if they can get it together the last couple weeks, make a run, they're 5-4. They sneak in, and that's going to shuffle things up, adding another team to the Lakeshore. And so that's going to make the bracket a little bit more interesting as well to watch. So that's going to be fun. Pontiac Notre Dame was a team that obviously a lot of people are looking at as a state contending team, right? Even arguably the team to beat in Division 5. Coming to Reed City, obviously that takes a lot to put in. This was supposed to be, theoretically, looking at spreads, looking at hypothetical scores, 50-point blowout. Pontiac's going to come in, but Reed City played a heck of a game for 2.5, even maybe 3 quarters. I think it was a really impressive performance. You saw the passing attack a little bit. Landon thrown out to Noah McKinney. Boy, what a great decision it was to move him out to wide receiver. He had 2 scores. forcing them with 2 turnovers. We had an interception that was batted up from the line of scrimmage that was picked off. And then we also had the fumble recovery on special teams. Really nice move. But that offense, they're fast. And what are they? They're fast. Yeah. Exactly. And they wore out our DBs into the third quarter. And then they kept the offense in. They kept their starters in. They kept running up the score a little bit. No disrespect. Obviously, the coach is looking at other things as far as differentials and those things. But they ended up running it up a little bit. That's why you saw the final score line. But Reed City really played an incredible game for 2.5 to 3 quarters. It was incredible. The fourth quarter, the wheels fell off the wagon, but it was a really impressive performance by Coach Schenkel.
At least at one point, it might not be true today, but at least at one point, Reed City could have lost. You could go back in time. They could have lost every one of their non-conference games. They could have lost to Kingsley, could have lost to Glen Lake, right? And then they could lose to Notre Dame. They could lose to Beal City, and they might still host a playoff game. That's how loaded this non-conference schedule is for Coach Schenkel, who said, maybe I bit off a little more than I could chew.
With that game in particular.
Earlier,
yes. Really quick, Johnathan, we'll bring you in. Really quick, what were some things that you saw from Reed City that impressed you on the other side? Some players in particular that you thought played really well and have played well this year altogether?
Well, I think I lined up against Wyatt a lot. And,
of course, Wyatt Spalo.
And Luke Thompson, I think, right?
Ethan Thompson.
Oh, Ethan, sorry. Yeah,
they just know net last names, guys, and numbers. Yeah. That's all they care is numbers.
Yeah. No, those two were some big boys, to push around. They were tough. Jack, he was a pretty good runner once he got around the outside.
Pretty fast, yeah. We can't wait to see him be back on the field very soon. But now let's go over to Big Rapids. This is going to be a really fun one to watch because of all of the Grand Rapids teams naturally in Division 4. There's a lot to be on the lookout for, starting with the STY model, the snooze model. And it's actually ironic because we'll get to the GP model as well here later on. It has it flipped seeds, but the same matchup, and it's the same one we mentioned last week against the Orioles of Ludington. That's a really good team that's been very much improved this year. Obviously, they lost to Mason County Central. That is normally a matchup that goes the other way around, kind of like Reed City to Big Rapids a couple years ago. Now that has flipped. So that's going to be a very interesting one to watch because Ludington, I believe, is a team that has been seen by a couple local teams, and you guys probably know a little bit about them, Johnny, as far as who they've played and what their scheme kind of looks like. So that would be a fun one. Hudsonville Unity Christian, as long as they can get through, obviously they have a gauntlet of a schedule the rest of the way, but if they can get through it, they're going to obviously be the #1 seed, not only in this district, but Division 4 altogether. That's a really good football team. But the fun one, I think that we talked with obviously Garrett and Earl last week, is the team that is going to play them potentially round 1, the team they would like to play against, the Vikings in Whitehall, for how fun of a football game that was for you guys last year.
Oh, it was awesome, just especially at driving down the field, getting that go-ahead touchdown, stopping them, kicking that field goal and blocking it was awesome.
Yeah, isn't it a well of an experience? On the other side as well, you have Portland, a team that Reed City's actually seen for quite a few years back when they were both in Division 5 battling for the top seeds. So
Pokemon.
They're down there. JT calls them the Pokemon for their mascot. You can look up the helmet and the logo at home if you want. Forest Hills Eastern, if we kind of flip over to the GP model too, that is the team that has gone back and forth based on futurist models that gets bumped north. So that's a team to watch as far as potentially playing Big Rapids. And Escanaba is a team right now out of the playoffs, but they are, I believe, the first or second team out, so they would come in, and they have actually a very favorable schedule the rest of the way, playing Gaylord, Alpena, and Gladstone. Combined records of those 3 teams, 2-16. So they're going to get some freebies, and Alpena and Gaylord especially, those are upper division schools, so you're going to get the multiplier involved. You're going to get more playoff points. So that might be a team that probably should get booked in to the playoffs. There's obviously discrepancy if Hamilton will get in. They're kind of right now on the fence, but they're in as far as on the other side with Escanaba, so that might be one to watch. But it's really going to come down, JT, we've talked about it. It's going to be either are they going to get kicked north or going to get kicked to the lakeshore. It's going to be that kind of a battle again.
Yeah, and it would be cool for Big Rapids to play Escanaba because Coach Seltzer's first year coaching, his first playoff win was against Escanaba up at the, I'll call it the Igloo,
yes.
Up with the Eskimos in Escanaba. Myself, Bill Beckwith, driving up there to do that game. That was a lot of fun. So it'd be kind of cool to get them back on there. But when you break down that map, right, the higher the divisions that you go in the state, the fewer there are north. So Big Rapids, Freeland are the farthest north LP teams.
Right.
in the state, you got to go all the way to Escanaba for the next team that could make the playoffs. So, what could happen? Another scenario potentially has Big Rapids eventually maybe running into the Freeland Falcons at some point. But we'll have to see, because a lot of these teams get kicked around. Big Rapids is, I feel like, a little bit less predictable than even Reed City. Reed City is somewhat predictable where they end up in the playoffs once you know who's on the sitting at the table.
Yeah.
But Big Rapids, they'll kick them to the Lakeshore, which has been the recent trend, have not gone north pretty much since that first year with Coach Seltzer. So
Correct.
They don't like to do it with Big Rapids. For whatever reason, they're more likely to pull a team like Freeland, and then maybe even another Bay Area team in there. So we'll have to see what happens, but I think the expectation would be more that the Ludington Orioles would most likely be the first round matchup. Again, you guys saw them, I believe, in the 7-on-7, correct, Johnny?
Yeah.
So you're somewhat familiar with at least the basics of what they will do prior to diving into film on them. But I know Garrett talked about hitting Whitehall again. Sure, that'd be a great matchup to roll back.
Yes,
but you want to have as many other teams beating up on Unity Christian before you play them. That's for sure. That team, it just looks like the real deal. And apparently, I think they're playing South Christian this week.
I think that's what I heard. Yeah.
So for Hudsonville, this is actually hilarious, because at one point we had, and I had to write this down because it was so crazy. They had Holland Christian, Unity Christian, Forest Hills East, and South Christian all in the same district. Those would arguably, if you ask football experts in D4, those are all 4 top 10 teams in all of the state as far as Division 4, and they would have to play in a district. Obviously, they're not going to probably let that happen, and the points will sort themselves out because they're going to have to play each other, right? Mm-hmm. South Christian is playing Unity, I believe, this week in rivalry week, so one of those teams has to lose, right? And so you'll be looking at what maybe another team that can be in. Freeland is going to be the team that probably they're just going to be looking to the fate of week 9 to see where they end up, because they're going to go up and down basically until we get to the final rankings and selection show.
Yeah, and it must be nice for football to kind of be able to seed into the playoffs, right?
You say seed like this, yes.
Well, because you're talking about how the MHSA won't allow those matchups to happen through the selection show. It happens every year in baseball. Every year. Some of the best teams in the area play each other in a pre-district game.
Yes.
It's criminal. You need to change it, all right, MHSA. Please do for baseball.
Yes.
Anyway.
You guys got the win against Tri-County, especially for that game. I'm dominant on the scoreboard, obviously getting a huge win, but a lot of the impact and a lot of the feedback was it seemed like you guys made a couple mistakes that you want to fix, and that this game really, it got out of hand, but you guys could have thumped them a little bit more just with a little bit better execution.
Yeah, I agree. I think that offensive-wise, we ran the ball very well. I think that our passing game, we had some drop balls, but it'll get better over time. We haven't had to use it much, so.
Right, but some scores around the league as well. Really big win for Central Montcalm. How about that against Kent City? They're going to be pretty much, can't say it officially, but they take care of business, play their game. They're going to be the winners of the CSA White in their inaugural season in that division. They absolutely just clomped Kent City. That was an impressive win for them. Saw a really fun game over there, I believe, at White Cloud. Molly Stanwood getting the win on the road in overtime. How fun is that? Chip Hills gave Nueco a little bit of fit. Only, I believe, a 9-point scoreline at the end of 4 quarters. So that's a really impressive performance from Coach Palong and company as well.
Well, and then we all, most of us actually picked Lakeview to win the game against Grant.
Yes,
Grant
correct.
Put it on them 27-6.
I was one of them.
Yeah, I think you were the only one.
Yeah.
Who picked Grant?
I think I was the only one.
I don't think anyone else picked him.
And that was strictly because I wanted them to win so that the security of this game would be intact. And it is going to be this week.
And to be fair, I surveyed a lot of Big Rapids people, so they all were probably still a little bit sour about Grant.
I'm glad they were all healthy to play.
Yeah, it is a good thing to see. So obviously Reed City will play Grant at homecoming this week. That's going to be a fun game over there in Reed City. Obviously Nueco facing against Big Rapids. Talk about that game a little bit. Really fun football game ahead.
Some other teams looking to make the playoffs in the area as well. Central MONTCALM, we talked about at the head of the white. They're most likely just going to moonwalk through that conference. It looks like the rest of their schedule, Lingman and company should be able to finish that out with wins. So they have Snooze has them as the 2 seed hosting Lansing Catholic, which will be very interesting for Emmett.
What a football game that would be. A revenge game for Emmett.
A revenge game for Emmett, who lost to Lansing Catholic in the regionals last spring, 9-0.
In baseball,
In
yes.
baseball, yes. Emmett will be looking for revenge if that does, in fact, come out. However, the Poop model has them with an 8-1 finish, with their only loss being to Newaygo, of course, sets them up as the 3 seed, and they would have to go to Chesaning for that one. So some potentials for the Hornets. Coming out of the Highlands, MCBAIN is a ranked team. I mean, MCBAIN is the real deal.
They're in.
This year they are in without a doubt. What doesn't make any sense to me, though, is the Snooze model has them as a 3 seed heading to TC St. Francis.
Oh, what a game for week 1.
But as a undefeated, just blow out everyone you play team, and they're the 3 seed. However, Poop has them at 9-0.
You really like saying that word, don't you?
and that has them as the 2 seed hosting Harrison, who's having quite a year this year. I feel like that's got to be more realistic. I just refuse to believe that a 9-0 team in any division would be a 3 seed that has to go somewhere for a first round playoff game. So I'm going to go with the GP model on that one. But then you have the Beal City Aggies have really come on of late. We mentioned their throttling of Everett last week. They're most likely going to finish 7-2. I believe that's assuming a loss to Reed City.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
That's what their model has based on playoff points and obviously difficulty and schedule mapped in. They are favoring, I believe, Reed City right now.
Yeah, so that would have Beal City hosting Mansalona in the first round. GP actually has them going to as a 4 seed heading to Fowler, who's 9-0.
That's a good school of athletes, to say the least. So how fun that would be.
They are crushing every team they play this year. Let me say, just look at the scores for Fowler. It is horrifying if you have to play them. And then the last team, well, there's 2 apparently, but the last one for sure coming out of that is most likely Everett will make the playoffs. And today, Snooze has them hosting Houghton Lake, the other team out of the Highlands.
Why not? It makes sense, doesn't it?
That would be very interesting, but GP has them with a 5-4 finish going to Ithaca, who is 9-0 this year, looking really good. So
that's a good football team.
Yeah, that's a little bit that'd be a little bit tough of a path for the Wildcats, but they're having a very offensively explosive year. But they've had a couple pretty big losses in this year too. So got to try to even that out, smooth it out these last couple weeks. But they got to play the Ramblers this week, so it's going to be tough. So shout out Hunter Thompson and Aaron DeBoer. The MCBAIN Ramblers are coming.
The Ramblers are coming. They're ready. So big thanks to you guys for tuning in. Big thanks to our great friend, Johnathan, for joining us here on the program. We appreciate having your time. And we'll look forward to bringing you more of the playoff projections as we get into next week's episode. So in order to do that, you got to hit the subscribe button. Big Rapids Daily News on YouTube. We can't wait to bring it to you. Big thanks to Michigan ADAS. If you have any needs with ADAS calibrations and glass, they can help you out. They can fix it up for you, especially even if the glass breaks. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be fixed by just slapping a new pane on there. You're going to have to get those sensors recalibrated. They can help with that and so much more here on 21 Mile Road. How about 19 Mile Road on Northland Drive? So that's going to do it for here. But any last thoughts, gentlemen, before we depart?
Johnny, what's your scoring prediction for Friday night, Big Rapids Newaygo?
Ooh, okay.
I got a, we'll say 41-0.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Some confidence coming out of this young man.
Yep.
Attaboy.
I think Big Rapids fans just said, oh, heck yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully 2 big wins for both of us, maybe potentially. I think I might get, unfortunately, mobbed in the parking lot for saying that as a Reed City fan. So I'm going to go away now, and I'm going to run off your screen before you have a chance to do that. Big thanks, Michigan ADAS, and we'll see you next time here on The Rundown.